So, what do we mean when we speak about thinking in Heidegger? We have the precedent of the Cartesian omnibus dubitandum, or supreme doubt. So, simply the question over if what we see, what our senses gather, and the environment which we all take to be there for everyone and the same for everyone can simply be doubted, and that even if this were a dream, or there's various intermediate, more rational considerations, such as that we're take ourselves since remote antiquity to be a sort of anima or nephesh or animal. Anima is the Latin, nephesh is the ancient Hebrew, which has a sensorium, or eyes and sight, and we can doubt as to whether our specific human sensorium gives the only a representation of something else aside from this environment, which usually in everyday life we suppose is shared by everyone. The colors may be different, the shapes may be different, the extension may be relatively smaller or relatively larger. Everything may be totally different for another sensorium, that of a spider or that of a being unknown to us, which in our own time, and since the idea of evolution became prominent, we could think in terms of aliens, or the notion of evolution and the notion that there are remote stars, perhaps infinitely remote, where other things are happening, and other such speculations can give us reason to ask about that. So this is the simple meaning of the cognito ergo sum, that however much we doubt what we currently take for granted, for instance, that all this is standing still, that we're solid here, rather than moving at an enormous rate around the axis of the Earth, and in n number of other ways we don't know about. This is what the cognito means. That's what thinking means. As the first step going towards Heidegger, who's trying to, as it were, think through, which means in a way in normal vernacular experience, the possibilities of this question. Heidegger says Descartes leaves the sum unthought. This is the being and beings question. All beings in some way are, and we're not perplexed by that. Heidegger says we don't make it into a question, we don't attempt to enter that question. Heidegger attempts to get some avenue that he can hike through on a D file into that question and send his forces as little green men into that Donbass. The question of language then appears within this sort of solipsistic system, because it's solipsistic in the sense that we don't assume that we're represented, that this, which we assume to be the same for everyone, but we can see with our reason is not the same for every being, has some one independent position aside from what we actually experience as direct observation or one form of phenomenology. Phenomenology is, we can understand, as one attempt to get direct observation rather than live within the various inherited presuppositions, such as that of the modern presupposition of reality, but there's something which corresponds to the so-called primary qualities rather than qualities which only belong to the verisimilitude of a human being saying, this is how it seems that it is for me, and I take naively, without being perplexed about it, to be the same for everyone, the same environment for every possible being. This is the kind of question that for several hundred years prior to Heidegger was being probed, especially by the German idealists. We're asking, what is the conditions of any possible experience, a transcendental question. So, in order to see what Heidegger means, we don't necessarily have to read Heidegger, but we can see the questions that seem to be necessary questions for human beings. So, in other words, this question, such as the question of, is this simply the environment for all beings, or is it due to our specific access as an animal, or as a rational being, or as a being with a sensorium, or as a Dasein, that it is like this? This seems to be a necessary question, or put in more direct terms, it's a question that we, as human beings, suppose that we should allow some people to ask and inquire into, and perhaps there should be departments in the university, philosophy departments where that happens. So these questions, which take on various cogency and seem more or less intense in their demands on us in different ages, as Heidegger put it. So during the time of Schelling, it seemed a little different than it did now, and there was a demand for systemization of these kind of questions. Now there's not. These all give us a basic orientation as to what this question about thinking is, and about what kind of paths Heidegger has gone down in preparing himself to think and to guide us to what he finds in his thinking, so that we can probe around those trails ourselves. I'll leave off saying, I give just a little vignette on language. I'm not sure if I did this already in the other video, but I think I did already on the generosity question. So we have that as a little vignette on how language can alter things. And that Leo Strauss says that about 1960 that there's no translation for generosity into German. Now there is, because it's become World German. And also there's generositat, it's a loan word from French, which I think probably came in after Napoleon smashed the Germans in 1806, or the Prussians, and reset their political order. Many other considerations will add to the densely packed congeries of experiences which go into trying to ask this question, like, was heißt denken, what is thinking?